All right, greetings everybody. Sorry for the delay. There's always something as I'm back in the home office. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be a Monday if things didn't go awry. Weird things happen. I wish there was a different way to do it. Windows and then you have a webcam. I don't actually use a webcam, I use a camera, but it comes into the system and it's identified as a webcam. And then sometimes Windows decides that some other application has locked the webcam, even though I'm not using any other applications. And then suddenly I'm scrambling around to try to unlock the camera. I had to do a whole bunch of trial and error, basically, and then something magically works. Yay! But I am here now. I am here now with you at the turn of the tide, if you will. This is just some kind of, at this point, lukewarm cappuccino for the working man. I'm glad you guys were amusing yourselves in the chat. Hey, the Dave. Hey, Brian Smith. Hey, No Sorin. Welcome. Brian Smith says, unlocking the camera almost like a thief. Yes. Very apropos of the moment that, I had to unlock. Though I suppose the thief would have picked the lock of the camera as opposed to me unlocking it. What I decided to do for this one. So this what got me this idea is I think I was I in the airport yesterday traveling and I was looking at the what was it? That must have been the OSR Discord, and there was some discussion back and forth about the thief, and it got me thinking about it in terms of, there's often this kind of, I hate the thief, I get rid of the thief, or I defend the thief, whatever. But it kind of got me thinking, maybe there's a middle path, like as it usually tends to be. You kind of take the thief as is, love it, or hate the thief as is. And then some people will fiddle around with how they decide to determine the skills of the thief. But I don't know that I've seen too much. I mean, the Specialist in Lamentations of the Flame Princess I thought was pretty good in that it expanded what a no longer a thief, but a specialist could be. So a specialist could be a thief, could be a ranger, could be a bunch of things like that. But if you were going to kind of stick with sort of the basic concept of a thief, is there a way we could fiddle with this thing to maybe, I think the term I used somewhere was, so it doesn't step on maybe everybody's toes as much, right? Because that was the big complaint when the thief first entered the game, and it's still a lot of people's complaint, is that the thief puts into a class a lot of stuff that all the classes were expected to do before the thief showed up. And what I did here in this, I'm on Ouija. If anyone wants to ask, I'm on Ouija. I went through, now from its OG thief, I went all the way back to the beginning, at least as far as I have, which is Greyhawk, the Greyhawk supplement, where the thief first appears. And I'm just going to read straight from the horse, as it is, as it were, the horse's mouth, in terms of what exactly we're dealing with here. So this is on, if you're following along, we're on page 4 of Greyhawk. Thieves. All thieves are either neutral or chaotic, although lawful characters may hire them on a one-time basis for missions which are basically lawful. They are not as strong as other classes in hit dice, but thieves have many distinct advantages which are enumerated below. Thieves can employ magic daggers and magic swords, but none of the other magical weaponry. They can wear only leather armor and cannot employ shields. While they cannot learn spells, thieves of the highest levels are able to read those spells written on scrolls. Basic abilities are: open locks by picking or foiling magical closures. Remove small trap devices, such as poison needles. Listen for noise behind closed doors. Move with great stealth. Filch items and pick pockets. Hide in shadows. Strike silently from behind. And finally, climb nearly sheer surfaces upwards or downwards. And then, let's see, we got some notes about demi-humans and the thieves. Thieves of 3rd level and above are able to read most... there we go. Sorry about that. Thieves of the 3rd level and above are able to read most languages, 80%, so treasure maps can be read and understood by them without recourse to a spell. Now, that's kind of an interesting wrinkle. I don't really ever recall thinking about, is that you could only read treasure maps through a spell. That's one of those things that's kind of, you come across them in the white box in particular, and you're like, what do they mean by that? I am not sure. Let's see, what else we have here? Thieves of 10th level and above are able to understand magical writings, so any scroll that falls into their hands can be used by them excluding spells which are clerical in nature. However, with spells of the 7th level and above, there's a 10% chance that the the effect will be the reverse of that intended, due to the fact that even master thieves do not fully comprehend such great magic. This reverse effect can be known only after the spell is read. By striking silently from behind, the thief gains 2 advantages. First, he increases the chance to hit by 20%, which is +4 on his die. Secondly, he does double damage when he so attacks, with like additional damage for every 4 levels he has attained. Thus, if a thief of the 4th level attacks from behind, he would do twice the damage indicated by the die. At 5th through 8th levels, he would do thrice the damage. At 9th through 12th levels, he would do 4 times the damage, and so on. The ability of a thief to climb is also a function of his level. Excuse me. There is a basic chance of 13% that a 1st level thief will slip and fall in climbing. With each higher level attained by the thief, this chance is reduced by 1%, so that a 10th level thief has but a 4% chance of slipping. Other information regarding thieves will be found in the appropriate sections of this booklet. So there is at least the overview of the thief. Let's see. Brian Smith says, we got a couple things here. Let me scroll back up. Hey, Howard Hughes. Ian says, I've had that issue before. Oh, this is probably about webcams. Yeah, the cam link's pretty good. So Ian, yeah, I use an Atom Mini Pro, which is kind of like it's a camera switcher that does some of this stuff, but similar functionality to the computer as a Cam Link Pro. It just does it sometimes, and I'm not sure what the issue is, but it just when it happens, it's annoying. Brian says, I honestly think the thief should be hateable in some fashion. It's core to the character. I suppose so. Also, he says that, so thieves are pretty book smart, actually. They can fumble through a spell, read most languages. Yes, that's correct. Dave says, reading treasure maps only through a spell makes sense. They will be coded to protect the treasure. It makes sense if it's a magic user who is creating that treasure map. Now, oftentimes, I imagine other folks, maybe even creatures too, might create treasure maps that aren't magical in nature. So, sure, for a dragon, yeah, I could see their treasure map being magically encoded. If you're a fighter, maybe you would go get a wizard to encode your treasure map. But then again, I don't know. I feel like if you're kind of the kind who's making a treasure map, do you kill the wizard after they encode it? It just seems like you're letting people in on your secret. So I can see it on some level, but on other levels, it seems like maybe it's a little bit overkill. Let's see. We got... Nosorian says that they have found read languages part a little bit too much when someone was playing a street urchin or feral type and suddenly could read ancient tongues with a good roll. Hey, Magnus. Yeah, I mean, yes. So we got to remember here, right? When back at this time, people were not really playing a lot of backstories. So I don't think people were really, I mean, at least so I imagine folks were not thinking of these as street urchins. Though you can always just do it as, again, there's that kind of supernatural aspect to the thief. That, hey, yes, this character's a street urchin, but somehow they know this is something that they have a gift to do. Like those guys that show up and suddenly they can do advanced mathematics, even though they haven't learned past first grade. I think it's okay if there's something to go, well, hey, this person's just super weirdly gifted, and we're not sure why, but that's okay because it even happens in our world, and we're in a magical world, so hey, stuff happens. Somebody just has the gift of gab. Dave says they think they can make ciphers that require magic to break, but not to make. Think of coding in World War II. Well, true, Dave, but in World War II, you didn't need magic to break the code. You needed stuff, but not literally not magic. I don't have a problem with it necessarily. It's just an interesting choice, right? It says something about what it really. I guess what I would say is it really says something about what treasure maps are. That we're talking about treasure maps as some really definite type of map, almost a subset of what we might think popularly as a treasure map that has been magically encoded. It's kind of a neat idea to play with, and maybe it's something that I don't think I would use it for all treasure maps, but I might have something like a roll of the dice, like, hey, maybe every 2 out of 6 of a treasure map is magically encoded, but I'd want that to also be reflected in where the treasure map's going, because if you've taken the time to encode it magically, then it's got to be worth it. Otherwise, why would you do it? I imagine, anyway. The Dave says that's why thieves can do it. They don't need magic. Everyone else does. Well, in that case, then it might make sense to then have thieves have a create encoded map as a skill, and that becomes part of their skill set is to cipher and decipher. That's what I would say there, right? Because at least the way it's reading, and of course we're going to be looking at what to do with it. That maybe that's something we do, is we take that and we say, we're going to change that functionality a little bit to give them this kind of cipher, decipher, almost giving them more of a little bit of a spy impetus. I'm just going to put some notes here. So we have decipher, treasure, or magic, treasure maps. I'm sure I spelled treasure. Ugh, I got my spelling this morning. Afternoon, I should say. How did I misspell decipher? Oh, I used a Y. Okay. And then we got read spell scrolls. What else did we have here? What did we say also? They can read magical languages. Was that right? Climbing, we got reverse, understand magical writings. I'm going to put them separately. Actually, I should put use. They don't necessarily understand it, but they can use spell scrolls. Granted, it's at higher levels. Magnus says maybe a guild master issues the same decoder wheel to all their operatives, but different ranks use it differently, so higher ups can read a completely different message. That's an interesting idea. I mean, yeah, that definitely gets into some world building around kind of what thieves are. Okay, so I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to find out where their other. I'm sure the other notes on the thieves are kind of what their hit progression and things like that. So we'll go with this with the basic list. So what we have here for the OG thief, again, I'm pulling directly from Greyhawk. I think there's a even earlier kind of proto version of the thief, because this was originally someone's homebrew and it got kind of pulled in. I don't have it available. I'm sure it's floating around somewhere, but I don't have it. I figured this is a good place to start. So for the OG thief, we have, and I like their original language here, because I think it does at least kind of point to sort of what they're trying to get at, right? So open locks by picking or foiling magical enclosures. So actually, you know what? I'm going to do something here. So I want to make a next thing here. I'm going to turn this one. I'll turn this one yellow. And I'm going to call this. This is equipment-based. Abilities. I really just want to make this. So at least this is partially. So we have two things here. So in opening locks, we have picking, which uses equipment. And then foiling magical closers, presumably, maybe that's the same lock picking devices, we can presume. Removing small trap devices is, I don't think it doesn't, the wording anyway doesn't seem to suggest you require a specific tool. I think that the one thing to note here, interesting, it's remove small trap devices, not detect them, remove them. So what the thief can do is, if there's an example in the book, I think that I didn't use, the parenthetical on that was like a needle trap, is that they can remove it. Not that they can find it, not that they're better at finding it than anyone else, that they can remove it, which is interesting, because that to me suggests that they maybe can reuse it. Maybe they can rewire it after you're done, or do something else. I mean, it would be cool if you could have and maybe this is where we can get at in the kind of MacGyvering of the thief is, hey, the thief removes that needle trap. Suddenly they make some other trap somewhere else using that needle trap, but they're not detecting it. So this is not a detection, but this is not, to me, equipment based. Listen for noise behind closed doors. So here's where I'm going to put another one where we're going to want to put something for the overlap, right? So, and this is where we want to kind of mark over the skills that are the ones that have, I think, where we look at and go, this is something we want everyone to do, right? So definitely the first one of those is, listen to closed doors. That's something we kind of want everybody to do. Magnus wants to steal an idea like a thief. Excellent. Move with great stealth. I don't know that that's a skill overlap one. Do we really feel like parties are moving great stealth, like fighters and clerics and magic users? I don't think so. Of course, the one thing with all these is they use these wonderfully almost flowery kind of prose, but then you don't get the explanation of what it means. So move with great stealth, right? It's not just you're moving, I'm moving quietly with great stealth. Of course, what does that mean? It's kind of like you're sort of better at it than everybody else. So maybe I'll put a thing here, another category of skill of things we can do as the sort of enhanced skill. Yeah, everybody can do it, but thieves are just better. And I would put move with great stealth would be in that. Brian Smith says stealth is a chance to go unnoticed. Yeah, no, I agree, Brian Smith. But see, they say great stealth, right? It's not just moving, it's the great part. They clearly are trying to Gygax, and they do this in different ways, right? Move silently. And I think the defense of that, which I've used before, and lots of people say, is if you look at the word choice, you have to really pay attention to the word choice. It's not just, oh, they're moving quietly. No, it's silently. Oh, they're moving stealthily. No, it's great stealth, right? That the fact that they're giving it that adjective on top, that no, it's great stealth, not just stealth. Right. So we've got that. Filch items and pickpockets. Oh, yeah, we need another board for this. Is for unique skills. Oops, unique. Because that one's definitely a unique skill, because I don't think other classes, the idea of my cat is licking paper over there. Don't lick the paper, Bruce. Get that out of there. Let me color code this one. We'll go blue. So that's kind of a unique skill. I would say filching and picking pockets is a unique skill. Hide in shadows, we would say that's an enhanced skill. Dave says, I think by using these flowery terms, they need to define the baseline too. That's where the failure lies. Yes, I mean, I think that's the big mistake, is that they did not. They didn't do that. They didn't explain what it meant. They kind of left it to everybody, which in the one case is okay. We do that all the time, especially with kind of modern kind of OSR games. Leave it to the GM. But if they had known then that these would be sort of foundational for so much, they might have gone back. I'm sure if Gygax could look back at it, or any of these folks could look back at it and say, oh yeah, we probably should have done a better job. But we were looking at the game a certain way, and the game, we didn't really kind of realize, right, what we were doing. So this is a strike silently from behind. Maybe we would say that's an enhanced skill. We're thinking everybody can do that, but again, strike silently from behind. They don't really, when they describe it, they don't actually mention the silent part, but I think that's kind of key. It's not just that you're hitting somebody from behind, it's the silent bit. It's that assassination sort of thing, as opposed to just whacking somebody from behind. It's that stealthy, stab in between the ribs that doesn't make a sound, as opposed to just hammering someone from an angle. Magnus says that they think defining thieves by equipment is hard because fighters are defined by their exceptional skill with weapons and armor. In particular, thieves are defined by purely being "quote unquote" skilled. Well, the thing is that no one's really, Magnus. We kind of go back and we define them as that later, but they're not really defined like that necessarily here, and that's probably part of the problem. As you can see, we have a whole bunch of different things here that they're kind of going. So climbing sheer surfaces would be an enhanced skill, I think. Decipher magic treasure maps, that's a unique skill. Use spell scrolls, that's some overlap. That one's probably not a bad one necessarily. Understand magical writings, also an overlap, but maybe not a bad one. And it's interesting here because these at the bottom, we always think of magic users having this ability to kind of mimic other classes, especially later on when they got kind of more powerful. So it's kind of interesting here that the thief is able to mimic some magic user stuff. So it's kind of going the other way, which is not necessarily a bad thing, a good thing or a bad thing. It's just kind of a way of doing it. Nosorian says that like that taking sentries one by one in terms of kind of the backstabby stuff. Yes, right. Going from, right, that's kind of, and that's another thing maybe we can get into is maybe really that instead of having one thief thing, it should be even maybe multiple classes depending on what it is. Because you have kind of your, I guess it's really a halfling, but you have that kind of burglar in sort of the Tolkien Hobbit sense of being a burglar, where they're not stabbing things or doing things, but they are moving silently. There is a little bit of that deciphering treasure map. I mean, Bilbo doesn't do it. Gandalf does it, but you could kind of wink and squint and say, okay, Bilbo does it. Certainly he's got the map afterwards. So maybe he learns from that and that becomes kind of a thing. You could think about ninjas could be some subset that have all the strikey, stabby, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, climbing sheer surfaces. Bilbo certainly couldn't climb sheer surfaces, even though you kind of think a burglar would be good at climbing like that, but they're not. So we have some different things. So we have the equipment base. I'm just going to write down here so we can kind of keep straight. We have the open locks. That's equipment based. I guess removing small devices. I guess it's kind of a unique skill. So what are our unique skills? We've got remove, and it's also small traps, which, obviously how do you remove a pit trap might be one thing, but it is supposed to be small because I'm thinking stuff on chests and things like that, maybe doors, and pick pockets. And then the last one was this decipher magic treasure maps. And the reason why I'm putting it on unique is because they're not using a spell. This is not them using a spell to do it like I guess a wizard would do. It would be they're doing it through sheer, I guess, maybe I should spread this out a little bit just to give things, let things breathe a little bit more. Sheer thiefness. Okay, and then we have on the enhanced skills, we've got move with great stealth. We've got hide in shadows. Let's see, strike silently from behind. And climb sheer surfaces, or I'll say nearly sheer. So they don't even give thieves all the way sheer surfaces. Though I do like that they specifically call out being able to move up and down. Not only can they climb upwards up some nearly sheer surface, they can also climb down it again, which is even another advantage. Right, maybe you can get that fighter up that thing, but they're not climbing down again. Let's see. No, Sorian says in second edition AD&D, if they recall correctly, halflings and gnome thieves had lower climb walls percentage. That would make sense. I'm not trying to get in the weeds on the kind of species modifiers, but that totally makes sense that they would do something like that. Mr. Portal Fuzzy 1. Good afternoon. I was talking to, okay. Let's see, they're talking about Rangers. Oh, I missed Magnus's hot take. All right, let me read Magnus's hot take first. So Magnus's hot take is Rangers and Rogues should not be their own class. They should be subclasses, specializations. Maybe a Rogue is sort of urban Ranger subclass. And Ranger should be a subclass of fighter. And then Mr. Portal Fuzzy 1 says that it is under a fighter type in AD&D, and that they would not put them under rogues just because they have limited thief skills. I mean, the interesting thing is from this, what would a thief be a subclass of in like OD&D kind of like obviously when we get to AD&D when they're adding a lot more stuff, you end up with what like rogue, thief, and bard. You start getting those specializations or subclasses, but at this point, talking white box, BX, homes. We don't have any of that yet. So I'm not sure the rogues are, or the thieves, I should say, are kind of in a spot kind of by themselves. And then for skill overlap, we have listen for noise behind doors. And the second one is, three of them. Use spell scrolls, overlap, and then understand magical writings. Okay. So here we've got our breaking it down. Thieves are a subtype of cleric, but I mean, that would be good. I mean, everything is a subtype of cleric. Okay, so here I think we got a good list. So we have one equipment-based ability, open locks. Though I think we could actually expand that if we wanted to kind of go that way. Here we have the skill overlaps. Now, this opens up a little bit of a rabbit hole, right? Which is kind of what you do with skills in general. And there's no right answer here. Okay, no right answer at all, right? You can go with White Box, BX, Holmes, that ilk, which now oftentimes we think of those games as being skillless, and they're not. Okay, they're not skillless. Wizards have skills that are expressed in spell slots. Cleric has Turn Undead as a skill that's expressed in level versus opposition. To hit is a skill that increases with level. Saving throws are basically skills that increase with level, but they're outside those highly specialized, very narrowly defined abilities. There's not skills for everything else. So when we talk about what to do with these skill overlaps, in a skill, if we wanted to have a skill system, we could simply give them some kind of modifier on top of it. If you're using an X and 6 type system, it's very easy to say that for certain things, thieves just get like a +1, right? If everybody has a 2 and 6 chance for listening to noise behind a door, then you can just give thieves, they get a 3 and 6 chance of listening, much like you do with elves and some other things where they're like, oh, you're surprised on a 1 and 2 and 6. Well, an elf is only surprised on a 1 and 6, right? Very easy with that. And that, in fact, is also kind of a skill. We have all these sort of special cases with skills, but there's no defined skill system, right? I would be very happy with taking some of these and just turning these into modifiers on top of it. So if the problem is with these overlaps that, hey, at least with some of them, the overlaps, or maybe I guess I should say this, I would be fine with taking these overlaps. Whoops. Which can I make that an arrow? There we go. Taking those skill overlaps and turn them into enhancements that we're going to kind of wrap these together and say, okay, everybody could try to move with stealth. Thieves are better, whatever that means. Usually, I would guess that move with stealth would probably turn into a better chance of surprising. Surprise, it's always one that I find hard to calculate because you'll say like, oh, you surprise on a 3 and 6, but this monster only gets surprised on a 1 and 6. So what is the actual thing? It can get a little bit funny to handle, but I think we could probably take these and boil them down to let's enhance them instead. Brian Smith says, I think the listen indoors can be specified to a thief in that it basically represents heightened senses in an urban setting, checking rooms, buildings, etc. Well, we could do that, but that's not what it says, right? Because we look at what it says. It doesn't say urban setting. It doesn't say whatever. It's probably meaning for dungeons. This is originally, clearly, we're talking about stuff they're doing in dungeons, which obviously applies very well to urban settings. And obviously, there's no closed door. If you run into a single closed door in the woods and there's nothing else around, that probably is its own issue. I mean, yeah, I think they're definitely hearkening to that, right? But remember, the way it's written is, and I think this is where people were first kind of getting up in arms, is like, well, wait a minute, why can my fighter not listen for noise behind closed doors? And certainly, depending on how you decide to look at Conan, maybe which story he is, you could clearly say at times Conan, you would look at Conan in one story and say he's a fighter. In some other story, he's a rogue or a thief, or obviously he's some kind of amalgamation of both. And somewhere I have here somewhere, they list all the things that they thought Conan was back in the day. But what I would probably say is have some kind of, we would turn all these into whatever skill system we're looking at. Well, maybe we'll just do X and 6. Well, we are making a new thief class, Brian Smith, but I don't know that we want to change it to being like urban focused because so the problem I have with saying like it's urban, right? Specifically, as opposed to just kind of wherever doors happen to be, is that you run into the same problem that you do when you say take a ranger and you say, oh, I have what is it, like my wilderness ability? What is it called? Like I have I forget that knowledge skill they have. Like I am a specialized in forest, and then someone might be like, well, we're never in the forest. This campaign takes place in a desert. It's like, well, okay, well then, so all my knowledge is just worth nil, right? So I can't listen to doors if it's not in a city. That kind of thing. I think what I need to do is I need to kind of grab my other white box books, because it might be good to get some of the other things. Hold on a second. You know what? Hold on a minute. Watch this. With the magic of television. I'm going to disappear for a sec. I think. No, I didn't. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. Hold on. Ew. All right. I'm just going to grab. I just got to reach over here. Reaching over. reaching over. Sorry, Bruce. Coming back. Okay, I got my stuff now, and I'm back. All right. I got a whole bunch of stuff in these boxes here. Cairn, 3 hearts and 3 lions. Some Arduin Grimoire that I need to get back to. Eldritch Wizardry. Men and Magic. Is this where it would be? Men and Magic. Blackmore. Where are the spots on... Let's see. I think it's going to be in... Hold on a minute. In Gods and Demigods and Heroes. Swords and Spells. Would it be in Maybe it might be in Underworld and the Wilderness. Let me just take it. Let's just see which one of these it might be in where they give the kind of X and 6 stuff for. Let's see. Oh, and I just want to see here, just an aside. Here's you see this? This is the schematic for the dungeon that Gygax wrote. Notice the ramps. Been a lot of talk about, stairs and certain things and lack of ramps in dungeons, but ramps were actually a pretty prominent feature. There are almost as many ramps in this thing as dungeons, and that was a whole idea of giving the dwarf the ability to be able to tell if the floor was sloping, is that you could use ramps as a sneaky GM to move the party down levels without them noticing. One of those sneaky things. But okay, hold on. Traps. Let's see. So we've got, and this is the one thing that's, you just got to deal with when you're in the white boxes, unless you're really on top of it, trying to remember where things are can be rough. So I don't know if it actually is in here. Distribution, the move turn in the underworld, surprise. Okay, so surprise. So surprise is usually 1 and 2. So let's start there. Let's get some stuff going here. It is handicap accessible. Absolutely. Magnus says, I loved all the customization you can get in 3.5e for all its jankiness. The problem is, Magnus, is not so much that, you could end up in look, it's a different kind of game, right? Because this character generation almost becomes a mini game that has its own mastery, which I don't love because that's not really, it's just for me. I just don't. I want to be able to get someone who's basically useful and survivable and it not be hit or miss. And I think 3.5 adds all those options, which seem good on paper, but then I just found that there weren't that many that were actually usable. And so everyone would end up going down the kind of same templates. And it's like, if we're all going to go down the same directions, because those are the ones that are clearly better than everything else, then what are all those options that are kind of dead ends doing? It's like they're trying to fool you. It's basically it's just the difficulty of that character generation game, which, like I just said, I'm not into. So, all right. So what did I say? So surprising, which would be the same thing as kind of stealth, right? So if we're going to redo, let's look at stealth, which is kind of measured by surprise. We've got everybody is surprised on a 2 in 6. So we could say for the thief, 1 in 6, or a, +1 mod. Right? How does that work so far? The red cap says the fighter has a chance to hide behind a curtain. The thief is automatic. If there's nothing to hide behind, the thief could try simply to blend into the background, aka the shadows. That's generally the interpretation of the red caps that I've used. It's just one of those things, right? Like it always comes up that it's not spelled out. So we get hide and shadows, but the confusion or the lack of clarity, because it's taken, right? It's like, are we taking the words literally, which is kind of where you lean to and I lean to, which is, no, he's saying hide in shadows literally, as opposed to metaphorically. And then people go, well, everybody's hiding in shadows. Why suddenly can only this person hide in shadows? But then you have to try to explain. And of course, this is only if you buy into that interpretation of, no, they mean literally shadows. I want to say in that one section, the back of the AD&D that we read a while back, where it had Gygax's advice to players, there was some bit in there about that was kind of illuminating about the stealth of the thief, and it kind of, that it was sort of supernatural. But it's just unfortunate they just, they didn't spell it out. They didn't spell it out. Dave says most games with a lot of options have very few actual options. Once someone figures out what is optimized, it frequently becomes the meta build that everyone goes with, which sucks. Yes. That's true. No, Sorian says that he agrees with me. Oh, thank you. About 3.5, but they do use the SRD from 3.5 as the basis for their own system, cutting down options and removing a lot of stuff. Less options are more options. Yeah, I mean, if you can keep all the options viable, go for it. But that's, if anyone's tried, as anyone who's tried to do that, that's really, really hard. All right, so we're going to move some of these overlaps to just kind of slotting in some things here. So for stealth, surprise, we're going to move. Everybody has a 2 in 6 chance, and really everything, right, to of being surprised. So 1%, I guess I should put everybody. Well, here, I guess this is surprise or be surprised is 2 in 6 generally. Thief 1 in 6 chance to, or I guess I should say 3 in 6 chance to surprise, 1 in 6 chance to be surprised. The Dave says, as a game designer, I can tell you it takes a painful amount of effort to keep everything viable. Yes, right. And that's why when you end up with this smorgasbord of options, inevitably some are going to be better. And then some of those that are better just get pounded on, and oftentimes they get even better and better. And then, as people are making more supplements, you're trying to make things that are attractive, to people to take. Hey, I'm coming up with a new option in the Splat book. I need to be attractive. So you need to then compete with the things that are on the higher end, because if they don't compete with those, no one's going to take them. And so you end up with that. Also, that kind of power creep gets in there really hard. Hey, the Red Caps read or watched the OFR video. I appreciate it. The resolution mechanic in OFR is simple but easily expanded. Agreed. Brian Smith says, but what about luck? There's always luck. You're rolling dice, aren't you, Brian? There's all the luck you need. So now, okay, so we have stealth surprise kind of covered there a little bit. We're going to say 2 in 6, which is just buy the book. Thieves get a +1 mod. I guess I should move this. +1 mod, 1 in 6 to surprise, or 3 in 6 to surprise, 1 in 6 chance to be surprised. Basically, +1 mod. Not equals 1 mod. Thank you. Okay. That goes for that. Listen. Okay, so listen for noise. Let me see if that's in this. So now we have listen for noise. It's probably going to be about the same. Don't thieves have some kind of preternatural ability to do things against great odds? I mean, maybe in certain fictional thieves do, but I don't think the book mentions anything about them having some specific luck factor, though you can give them one. Okay, hold on a minute. We're looking here. Wandering monsters, number of wandering monsters, avoiding monsters. All right, so where's the listen at doors? All right, so movement, time, melee, secret passages. Doors can be wedged open. All right, generally, okay, hold on a minute. Elves, that's fine. Generally, doors will not open by turning the handle or right push. Doors must be forced. Okay, that's fine. 3 characters, that's fine. Doors can be wedged open. Where's the thing about listening at doors? Am I going to need to pull up a PDF of the book so I can find out where the listen at doors is? Because it's in their example, but it's not there. What this is Underworld and Wilderness Adventures. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Oh, let's see. No, not that. Not you. Anyone remember offhand what the chance for listening at doors is? Is it 1 in 2? Am I remembering? Am I misremembering? Okay, I got the single volume edition here. All right, so let me see if I can find listen. Listen to what the flower people say. Where did my cursor go? Okay. Can I do that? Are you going to help me? Okay, time and movement. Yeah, that's not it. Okay, here we go. When characters come to a door, they may listen, detect any sound. A roll of 1 or 1 for 2 for elves, dwarves, or hobbit will detect sound within if there's any to be heard. So listen for noise. I'll just call it. So, all right. So humans, it's 1 in 6. Demi-humans, and we'll just call it, well, because you can be a demi-humans, right? It's +1 mod, aka, which becomes 2 and 6. Thieves, +1 mod, also for 2 or 3 and 6. Oh, no soaring. Okay, no soaring. Figured it out. Found it just as I was finding it. Brian Smith says, listening indoors is like sonar. Do you get to know where peeps are in the next room or something like that? Seems cool for planning some thiefly things and observing guard patterns. Let's see what it says. So I don't know where doors are in. Let me see if I can find it here. Because things are all over the place. Unguarded treasures, wandering monsters, avoiding monsters. I don't know where it is in this. Where are you? I don't know where doors is in here. Okay, I'm gonna assume that the single volume edition, which I'm looking at the PDF, is basically the same. I think it is. All the text is the same. It's not edited. It's just gathered together a little bit more, in a little more sensible organization. So it says, when characters come to a door, they may listen to detect any sound within. Note, undead never make any sound. A roll of 1 for humans and a roll 1 or 2 for elves, dwarves, and hobbits will detect sound within if there's any to be heard. A good referee will have noise corridors, moaning, clanking, etc., and rooms from whence come shuffling or muttering sounds. Generally, okay, and that's it. So they don't say exactly how good it is. I'm fine with it not necessarily being a sonar, just being better. But, you can, if you want to give them some extra juice on the end of that. So we got stealth covered, listen for noise covered. I don't know if there's anything I feel like I want to take away necessarily. Understand magical writings, I think, is great, because then the one thing that's interesting about these thieves is it makes a magic user less adventure a little bit more palatable, that they can understand magical writings, though that's at a high level, right? Higher level. So this doesn't kick in until higher level. Neither does the use of spell scrolls. So this is kind of higher level stuff. Ian says, should we bring up the carcass crawler #1 thief D6 skill alt system? I don't think so. I think I might have looked at it. Did I look at it already? I don't know. I'll leave that alone for now. I don't have any carcass crawlers either, so I don't have it on hand to check out. But we could maybe compare and contrast later on down the road. Brian says, a thief has to know what loot they want to share or not share, of course. So some kind of appraisal skill. So here, let's make a list of maybe some new. Do we want to add some new? So let's do this over here. We'll do kind of an add drop, right? Add additional skills. Did I spell that with 1 L? I did. And we'll put, no, let's see. We'll give that the green color. And then let's make another one, and we'll call this dropped skills, if we're going to drop any. And if we're going to add a bunch, we probably should, at least for some archetypes. And maybe this is where you expand it into other classes if you want to have. So I would actually be fine if we wanted to have some kind of appraisal. Maybe even magic items at high levels. Maybe goes with their sort of, they don't necessarily, maybe it's some kind of almost like a detect magic on stuff. They don't know exactly what it does. It's not the same as what a thing, but that maybe they can sense magic at high levels. I'd be okay with that. I like the idea of being able to create a cipher. That was one that we talked about earlier. right? That's you know, the we were talking about. What am I? No, what am I spelling cipher wrong? How am I spelling wrong? How do you spell cipher? Oh, it's blue, not red. Okay. You know, like those coded treasure maps, right? We looked at. Makes sense that they would be able to do that. Mundane identity, ad hoc identify, or sorry, mundane identify, ad hoc identify. Okay, so we do have sleight of hand, which where did sleight of hand end up? Filching. So we got filching and pickpockets, which is basically a unique skill of theirs. All right, so we've got that. I mean, I suppose there's arguments. You could make the argument that everybody wants to filch items and pickpockets, but I think for the most part, I just put that as a unique skill. And then that deciphering treasure maps is also a unique skill, as well as the removal of small traps. Small trap removal would be one. Ian says that we should just take the full D&D third edition skill list and distill it down into BX Thief skills. Oof, I don't know about that. All right, so Jima MX likes the appraisal. Yeah, so we can have. So really, what it seems like, it almost seems like we could think about that. Maybe we have kind of some different archetypes, right? We think about, we might have a couple, right? So there's, I'm just going to call it like that. There's the kind of ninja archetype. And I'm not saying we have to follow all these through. And I'm not saying that we have to make classes and subclasses or whatever, but it's just interesting to kind of look at, because you can kind of see here a little bit either how we're doing it, how they're doing it originally, what the where all these influences are coming from. And maybe it does make sense. And look, this is where, for me anyway, I don't necessarily need to make a hard and fast rule for the entire system, but it could be a setting. It could be, you know, very much setting dependent. If I'm playing a Lord of the Rings kind of Hobbit style game, then having the kind of burglar archetype makes more sense. If I'm playing a Tolkien sort of high, good, and evil, just the way that setting is, I'm not going to have a ninja archetype. I'm not going to have stab in the back, filching. Anyway, maybe NPCs would have it if you're evil. That might, you know, whatever. But that, you know, I'm not going to have that for my characters. That's just not part of it. If I was playing as something else, then maybe the spy archetype works. And I'm just putting it on the side because we think about it, because we have this stuff like the climbing sheer surfaces, strike silently from behind, hiding in shadows. Like these kind of skills here are definitely kind of fit with the ninja. I mean, some of them with a burglar, right? Hide in shadows definitely goes with the burglar, or at least the silently part goes with the burglar. Some of it goes with the ninja. We can think of like equipment. So I had here, like, do we want to go with equipment based? We can have kind of equipment proficiencies. I guess we'll go with yellow. What am I doing there? So the classic one, we've got thieves, tools. That's one. It's a good one. Another one, if we wanted to, because one thing we could do for the sheer surfaces, if we wanted to, you know, because we think about, well, like, okay, you know, all this argument about what is sheer, what's not sheer, what's too much. We could say instead, we could make it equipment based. We could say like, you know, spiked gloves, shoes, those kind of ninja. I don't know what they're called. Those kind of, and I'm sure there's a name for it. Those, you know, the hooks on the hands and the feet, the stuff that you could use to kind of climb sheer surfaces. Maybe that just becomes equipment proficiency in that. Just like only thieves, or you know, you can call it lock picking tools, whatever you want to call it, you know, earth keys tools. Only thieves are proficient in. Well, only thieves are proficient in these kind of climbing, spiky things that allow you to really do stuff. If we want to make it, this would be kind of, if we wanted to maybe bring it down and make it a little bit less supernatural, kind of make it a little more mundane, but still kind of keep the flavor of, yeah, they can climb things and nobody else can climb. Well, why can they do that? Well, they've got to have those spiked stuff. Brian Smith says, do they need climbing gloves to climb sheer surfaces, or the gear makes them better at it? Well, I mean, this is what we're kind of considering. Like, do we want to make it equipment based? Do we want to make it that they can do that? We don't have to, right? By the book, they don't need anything. They can do it with their shoes on. They can do it in their bare feet. They can do it wearing Uggs and some puffy mittens. There's no limit put on why. But what I'm talking about is for redoing this a little bit. Climbing was one of the ones. Remember, climbing and some of the stealth things are where people, the problem with them in the game, and problem obviously is kind of in the eye of the beholder, but it's that these are the skills that everybody's doing. We're in a dungeon. What are we doing? We're trying to sneak. We're climbing stuff. We're listening at doors. So why does it now become a thief skill? So how do we address that? Part of it, some of it we can do is, hey, we can say, look, it's not that they do it and you can't. It's that they're just better at it, which we can for some of these. We can add, which we already have numbers for. We know what listen for noise is. We know what stealth surprise rolls we're making. So those are easy to say, hey, we're just going to add a modifier to the existing system. We have an X and 6 system. Thieves just get a bonus to those X and 6 system. In fact, that's something that already happens because elves get kind of bonuses in certain situations, whatever, yada, yada, yada. So great. We'll just use that same system. Now for climbing, there wasn't a system. There is not a singular climbing roll. If they had said, hey, everybody has a 1 in 6 chance of climbing stuff, then we could just say, hey, okay, thieves are just better. But we don't. So climbing is something that originally was not abstracted into a skill. It was something that you would explain, and then the GM would say, okay, well, here's the surface, blah, blah, blah. So now we get, what do we do with the thieves that now have this climbing ability when everyone was at least able to make an attempt at it? Obviously, ultimately, just because the thieves can do it doesn't mean that you can't, but that, that often how you look at it, folks look at it. So what do? Maybe we turn it into, well, they're good at using these certain thieves tools that allow them to do something that we can't. You're a fighter, you see those claws and stuff, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I could brain somebody with these claws, but then you look, it's like, I'm not climbing. The wizard goes, pshaw, right? They don't need to. So by the book, they don't need any tools. But what I'm saying is we could, in our reconfigured thief, turn those into equipment. So just like fighter can use some equipment that nobody else can use, the clerics get some stuff nobody else can use, whatever, we could say with thieves, hey, they have some specialized equipment they can use that nobody else can use. And some of that allows them, it's now equipment based instead of kind of pseudo magical based. And there's not a right or wrong answer. It's kind of like, well, do we want to do it? Do we don't? We don't have to. The red cap says have to have the equipment, but also need to have training in it. So if a fighter loots the gloves from a dead body, they don't have the training, can't use. Yeah, right. It's it's a little bit gamist, red caps, but essentially right. Just like in the same way that at least by the book, I mean, you could, if you wanted to do it with penalties and get into that whole thing, but I'm just avoiding, right? Just right by the book, a fighter can't use a wand, even if they grab the wand off the body, or a wizard can't use a two-handed sword, even if they grab one, they can't, right? It's not part of their kit. And this would be part of the thief's kit. And you can, however you want to handle it, right? I'm not trying to cover every base or do everything. I'm just trying to, kind of working at a sort of high level here. So, like Daniel and his chainmail / ODD based game will allow people to use weapons that they can't use, but I feel like he gives them some kind of penalty. I forget what the penalty is if you go to use a weapon that you're not proficient with. So you're free to, obviously, would be free to, if this system were out there, which it's not, to hack it however you want. Brian Smith says, so the gloves give thieves advantage or something, or only thieves can use the climbing gloves? In this case, the way I have it written right now, just spitballing, is only thieves could use these. These are thief tools, much like, only fighters can use certain equipment. This would be thief only equipment. Other folks can put them on their hands and feet, but they don't help them. Would be otherwise. It's not saying you can't put it on, but you put on those spiky gloves and spiky, shoe things, not having it. Now, but again, like you can, this is just, this is like in here, right? All I'm doing is doing the same thing like in here or in, where did I put it? Or I should say in, what the heck did I do with, oh, here it is. I'm really just doing the same thing they do in here, right? When they say, hey, thieves can use magic daggers, but they can't use other swords. Magic swords. Okay, I'm just doing the same thing, but in reverse. I'm saying thieves can use spiked climbing gloves, other folks can't. This is just a baseline. Obviously, you'd be able to hack this up to any way that you like. Dave says the fighter climbs disadvantage, but likely has the strength need to see anyway. The thief does it without disadvantage. Well, we're talking about, remember, we're talking about the kind of sheer surfaces, right? We're not talking kind of about normal climbing here. We're talking about, we're taking climbing nearly sheer surfaces. So remember where we're coming from. Nearly sheer surfaces, upwards or downwards. And what we're saying instead is that instead of saying that the thief has a supernatural or quasi-supernatural ability to do it, instead, the reason why they can do that is because they can, if assuming they have the equipment, they can use these spiked climbing gloves, shoes, whatever they're called, to do that. Yes, in other words, Ian says climbing kit proficiency. Right. For specifically allowing them to climb those nearly sheer surfaces. Remember, we're not trying to take away just the general ability to climb. It's a specific circumstance. What are these? Instead of saying just thieves can do it, we're saying thieves can use I mean, it's a kind of a longer way of saying that thieves can do it, but we're tying it to equipment, which may make some sense for folks who may be uncomfortable or don't love, like, why do thieves get like a pseudo magical ability? They don't. They're trained, or they're gifted, skilled, otherwise able to use this specialized equipment to do a special thing, which is climb nearly sheer surfaces, upwards and downwards, right? So they can spider climb their way up, and they can also turn and spider climb their way down. Which I learned, I kind of, not that today I learned, but kind of a fairly recently I learned that, we think of cats and climbing trees, but only leopards and a couple of cats can actually climb down. And that's because of the way their bodies changed. Whereas leopards, and I think it's not even, I don't even know if it's all leopards, but I think it's cloud leopards, and maybe it's normal leopards too. It's the way their arms or their wrists, and I don't know, whatever they call it, are able to do to climb down vertically that other cats lost over evolution for other things, which is kind of neat. That's why cats get stuck up in trees, because they can get up, but the getting down part, at least being able to climb kind of down a trunk, let's say, other than a few cats, like I think cloud leopards and maybe there's a couple other ones, can do it. Dave says their wrists, ankles can turn backwards. There you go. So it's kind of neat, right? So I thought that was, and them having that kind of upwards and downwards. That's right, Smith. Just like that robot in RoboCop. That's right. Hence, that's why it failed, because it couldn't go to, couldn't navigate stairs. Okay. So what did we solve? So we got the overlap ones. Now I'm okay. I feel like I'm okay with understand magical writings. The ones that overlap with wizards, I'm totally okay with keeping them, because I actually think that's kind of nice. I think it's nice to have, if you don't have a magic user, or your magic user died, or your magic user's added juice, something, I kind of like that the thief could step in and do some of that. They kind of pick up a few tricks like that. I almost would even amend that to make it even start a little bit earlier than late levels. I don't know. I'd have to think about how to write that out so it makes sense. Okay, so that's climbing, and again, I'll probably write this up, and then maybe we could do what I'll probably do with this, because I have to end relatively soon, is take this, try to wheedle it in some form, and then we can have another stream where we can go through and kind of do some refinement, do some kind of picking on it. But ideally we're doing right is the kind of impetus for this is like, if the problem with thieves was that they were stepping on too many toes with kind of pulling skills out from other classes or any other classes, then how can we kind of make it back? I think the stealth, surprise, listen for noise, those are easy to put back in a context of everybody can do it. Thieves are just a little bit better at it. Those work. Climbing, because there was no unified climbing mechanic in OD&D, and so not in BX or anything until they came with skills. Instead of handing it to thieves, maybe we add it to equipment, and that way. And the reason why I like the equipment aspect for this kind of game is that it's not forcing us to create a mechanic, because then whatever the DM in a particular game is using for climbing, it's almost like what I have. The thief goes, oh, but I've got spiked climbing gloves. Those can let me climb sheer surfaces. Great. All right. Then the GM can go, great, and use whatever method they're doing. I don't have to create a climbing mechanic, which is kind of maybe I should say, as one of my goals, I don't want to create a bunch of mechanics to make a thief work. I want to see as much as possible work within what we already have. So if I can use existing X and 6, great. If I can use something that avoids me having to create something new, also great. So in this case, by putting it onto a specialized piece of kit, then we can just say, hey, the kit has this property. Only thieves can use it. And then if you want to change it down the line or give people advantage, disadvantage, blah, 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 you could do that. It's kind of part of like, that's now the kit, right? Hey, No Soren, glad you could join us. Have a great day. And I'm just going to wrap up here too, because yeah, I have to wrap her up as well. So and then for skill overlap, I kind of am okay with the magic user ones, but we might have to drop some things if we're adding some of these. I feel like thieves get a lot. I mean, granted, in some ways they have a rough time of it. Small hit die. Don't have no armor. I mean, only leather, right? Don't have a lot of great protections. They get some stuff with the scrolls. That's nice, but only at high levels. But I think that's good. And then I like the idea of the unique skills removing traps. I think I want to kind of increase this one a bit. I like the idea of giving them some kind of MacGyverism. They can remove and then reuse small traps, remove and reapply small traps, add to the kind of MacGyverism of the thief. That's going to be kind of GM dependent, but that's okay, I think. All right, so I guess we'll stop it here. So what we have so far is we've moved, I guess it's already kind of there, but anyway, the picking of locks, is that even open locks is equipment based? We got that. We're moving climbing to equipment based, or the climbing of sheer surfaces, not all climbing, just their ability to climb sheer surfaces. We're going to move that to equipment based. We're giving them an additional skill of appraisal, maybe give them a little bit to figure out magic items, at least generally, kind of like a little bit of a detect magic, but just for some others, maybe at higher levels. And that this idea of the deciphering and ciphering, aka like the magic treasure maps allude to, we're probably going to want to bump up their remove small traps, maybe increase that a little bit. We've turned their stealth and listen skills basically into enhancements. They're just a little bit better at it than other folks, which is great. And then what we still have to deal with is really surprise. The surprise roll really works for hidden shadows as well as listening. We haven't dealt with strike silently from behind. We still have to deal with that one. And then pickpockets we still have to deal with. And then we got to do some cleanup. Hopefully this was useful. So consider this a part 1. If I have a chance, I'll try to come back and put something together so we can continue, do some refinement, maybe in part 2, presumably tomorrow, though I maybe not tomorrow, because I might want to read something for Halloween, do like a Halloween themed kind of reading of some sort, but I have no idea what to do. I did Ravenloft a few years ago, so I'm not going to do Ravenloft again. If you have any ideas for a classic, preferably, but maybe not Halloween module we could give a read, let me know, because I will try to maybe do that tomorrow. Maybe I'll put together some kind of poll or question or something to that effect. Other than that, folks, hope you enjoyed the stream. As usual, game on. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.